All right, shalom, welcome. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Get our setup together. I think we're all right now. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. 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 Welcome. Welcome to everybody. Hopefully, everybody's doing well. Hopefully, everybody's participating in a peaceful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Once again, we give all praise and honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we're thankful and grateful for everybody who is chilling out with us and also making sure that they're participating in her helping the diaspora to have greater health. And the tincture of the month, even though she has many different tinctures and natural medicine that she has been able to use her creative power to make, the tincture of the month is I Am Rested. So hopefully you guys are rested. I apologize for not being able to get in front of you guys yesterday, but Shabbat Shalom to you. Hopefully you started, if you were like us, you started at 6 p.m. Eastern New York time. And we're grateful to have you guys on today. To the moderators, to the ministerial staff, to SOC family, to the diaspora, to those that share our beliefs, to those that don't, those that are willing to listen. Hopefully some of you are willing to listen. Some people want to come right in and talk about stuff, but hopefully some people are willing to listen and actually see where we're coming from culturally. And everything that we talk about is a cultural perspective. We will be a little shorter, as we have a tendency to do on Saturdays, because we have our podcast that pops up specifically with our Shabbat Shalom service. So since we want to make sure we're on time for that, by 10 a.m. Eastern New York time, we'll be having Minister Sonia and Sister Sharice on there for us later on. We want to make sure that we're out of their way, or we take our leave, rather, so that they might be able to step up into their gift and their calling. So we're thankful, we're grateful, we're appreciative of everybody, and thank you guys for being on with us today. How you doing, Sister Rhonda? How you doing, Sister Deborah? Minister Select Joseph, Keith, Tahiti, Cynthia, Dawn Pooh, excuse me. We got a few Dawns. I got to be careful which Dawn we're talking to. Bounty, Sister Barbara. I'm sorry, Bounty, Sister Barbara. Jacob's house. Hey, how you doing, brother? Jolene. I don't know why I'm having issues today. Minister Nice. I don't know why I'm having issues scrolling, but we're going to get this in. Hello. Okay, let's go ahead and get ready to get into this. How you doing, Sister Beverly? Van Lejeune. I'm not sure if I even said that correctly. Brother Clem, how you doing? I see you. Brother Naya. Everybody. We're catching up on YouTube videos. Excellent. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And, thank you for blessing us even with not just your presence or listening to the videos. And, we pray that it's reaching you the way that it was intended. And if you have questions, comments, or concerns, we have a lot of us to be able to help or walk out some things with you. Sometimes this can be a lonely journey. But we're thankful and grateful. So let's go ahead and get into this. Today, we want to talk about something a little different. Now, you guys have heard of the term perfectly imperfect, right? Which I get, and I actually like lyrics to the song and stuff, but I can't say I love them. And what I mean is I can't say I act upon them, right? We all are used to hearing stuff like, that we're perfectly imperfect, right? So, things like be perfectly imperfect. We've heard that before. We've gone into that, be perfectly imperfect, right? But today we want to talk about, thanks, man. We're going to talk about perfecting the imperfect. Amen. My wife honoring me and blessing me with some tea. Make sure I'm all right. So perfectly imperfect is something that we hear all the time. But what I want to talk about today, once again, is perfect the imperfect, right? Perfect the imperfect. You are being constructed. You are still being built up. And as we've talked about before, a few times recently, you're going to have a tough time doing anything, relationship-wise, business-wise, land development, children development, personal development, etc., if we're not going to be starting from a place of realizing that we have imperfections, right? And a lot of us want to remain imperfect So we say, you know, we're perfectly imperfect. And I get what we mean. And I'm not saying you're not great. I'm not saying you are not talented. I'm not saying you are not amazing, right? I'm not saying that somebody shouldn't be okay with your imperfections, right? But what I'm saying is the goal is to look for as many imperfections as possible and continue the perfecting process, right? How you doing, homeless vets? I myself used to be a homeless vet. So thank you for your service. Appreciate it. And thanks for being on, right? No Q&A box. Okay, we haven't had a Q. I feel like we haven't had a Q&A box in a while. At least nobody's been using it. So I don't know what's going on. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Sister Barb. So yeah. So we want to make sure that we are perfecting the imperfect. That's what the goal is today, is not to just stay where we are, but to perfect the imperfect. Find somebody, I've said this before, find somebody that's not just going to be okay with calling out imperfection. Don't become somebody that's great at saying everything that's imperfect, right? Become somebody who finds imperfections and finds ways to make them more perfect. Because here's the deal, the less imperfection that we have, the more peace you shall have, right? If you want to obtain peace, start looking at ways to get rid of imperfection. We talked about yesterday about the natural mathematics, or the math of nature, right? And how it's natural to be a problem solver. And a lot of people come and they say, give us an answer. Stop telling us problems, but give us an answer. Problem is that you got to solve problems in order to get an answer, right? You have to know the value of X. You have to know the value of Y before you can get that equal sign to the value of Z, right? Or that A plus B equals C, whichever way you want to go, right? But you've got to know the value of something. You've got to know what the problem is. You got to know if you need to add, subtract, multiply, divide. You have to know which one comes first. If you got a parentheses, all those things, right? And how you doing that for DC? We have to get to that place first. And then once we get there, we can start having a conversation about the answers. And how you doing, Sister Betty? Shabbat Shalom to everybody who's coming on all the platforms. So our goal is to what? To perfect the imperfect. Now we have to start looking at culturally. And hey, babe, my wife is on the Honorable Honor. Thanks for being on, babe. And please, once again, check her out at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. So if we're going to perfect the imperfect, first of all, we got to figure out what this perfect is, right? Now, perfect, we only think about a lot of times as far as completion. We don't have anything else to do. We don't need to become any greater, right? But perfect also means what? Maturity, right? And now what if I were to tell you that you are eternally maturing, right? And that's something that helps us with humility, with Gamal. If we recognize that we are constantly maturing, how you doing, Krypton? If we see we are constantly maturing, thanks for being part of Community Stars, then we will start to humble ourselves, because there's not a day that we've ever existed, and there will never be a day that you shall ever exist. There shall never be a time in eternity to where what? You should not be trying to go through a process of perfection, of becoming greater, of learning something new, of being able to remove yourself, sometimes remove yourself from the equation so you can grow. There should never be a time to where we are not what? We are not worried about being perfected or becoming greater, right? So we are always maturing. So when somebody says I'm perfect, what we should be talking about is I'm trying to become greater every day, right? When somebody says I'm perfect, they should be saying I'm trying to become greater every day. When somebody says I'm perfect, I'm still trying to become greater. I'm happy with the progress I've made, and I'm not condemning myself for problems I've had in the past, and I'm not stressing myself out about not being somebody who's never made a mistake, right? But I'm also, right, when I put my hand to the plow, when it's time to get to business, when it's time to make the diaspora greater, when it's time to make myself better, I'm not going to do this thing where I put my hand to the plow and I keep looking back. I keep trying to figure out, right? Like you're not going to catch me in that. I'm perfect. I'm mature, right? But I'm still going through a salvaging process. I'm still under construction. I'm not just under construction with no vision. I have a vision for myself given to me by the Most High. And since I've seen it, now everything that is being constructed in my life is helping me to get to where I need to be. How you doing, Sister Deja? Thanks for being part of the community. I missed somebody who just came in there. Uh-oh. Trina, thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate it. Right. So I'm being perfected, right? I'm being perfected, but I am perfect at the same time. It's an eternal process. There's not a time that I'm not perfect, but there's not a time I'm not being perfected. Do y'all catch that? There's not a time that I'm perfect or that I'm not perfect. So somebody can say, "You're perfect the way you are." That's great because I'm mature now. But it doesn't mean I'm still not being perfected. How you doing, Edward? Grand rising to you, right? So I'm perfect, I'm complete, and where I need to be, which means I got to know. See, watch this. We do what? Vision, purpose, value, right? Vision, you got to know where you're going. Purpose, what are you supposed to be doing right now? And value, do you value who you are, what the journey is, all those great things. The vision is I need to continue to be perfected to get to the vision. I'm perfect because every day I'm walking in my purpose, right? And I value both of those simultaneously because I'm eternal and I'm not temporary. So I don't focus on, oh, I'm not at the vision yet, or, ooh, I did something today, but it's not perfect yet. I value both because I'm an eternal being. I'm in yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I can pray about my yesterday. A lot of people don't even think about that, but I can pray about my yesterday. That's why in prayer, sometimes your ancestors are mentioned, even in the Bible. Why? Because I can pray about my yesterday, right? I can also pray towards my tomorrow. And I also can pray for what's going on today. I'm an eternal being. If I'm an eternal being, I'm not just what happened today. I'm not just what happened at the job. I'm not just what happened, whenever. If I'm an eternal being, I'm what? I'm always being perfected. So we have to change our mindset culturally, even as far as what is perfection. See, in the wrong mindset, you'll see the stretch mark as an imperfection. But what if the stretch mark is a sign simply that somebody lost weight? Or what if and somebody survived losing weight? What if the stretch mark is a sign that somebody survived gaining weight? What if the stretch mark is a sign that somebody survived having a child? Right? There's other reasons why stretch marks can happen as well, but those are the ones that we really look at the most. So the stretch mark is not so the stretch mark now changes to where it's perfection. If you have that because you have my baby, that's perfection, right? If you had that because you had my baby, that's perfection. you know, if you had that because you were busy loving on me and preparing stuff and cooking things and getting the house together, and you weren't able to and you decided I should have allowed it, but for whatever reason, stuff happened to where you couldn't take time out for yourself, and so maybe now you're carrying some things or carrying a little extra weight. But that extra weight now is perfection because you didn't have to do that for me. You didn't have to do that for me. That's construction. That's signs that there was construction. That's signs that our language is better. How you doing, Sister Sharice? Right? That's signs that you love me. My wife said, stretch marks are tiger stripes, battle wounds. Yeah. Right? Like that's signs that you love me, that you appreciated me. Right? So so now it goes from being I'm looking at your imperfection and I'm now realizing that you are perfect. Now, here's something that's going right. I would like to be able to help you with something. Doesn't matter if it's just whatever kind of relationships. We end up talking a lot about marriage because marriage is the foundational principle for us. Obviously, as a community of diaspora, every community, every group of people, marriage is the foundation, whether you like it or not. In our culture, we even go to the origins of marriage, where sex is marriage and marriage is sex. And by the way, that's in your constitution. No matter where you are, you got to consummate your marriage in order for it to count. That is what it is. Like, especially if you say you're a king or a queen, well, kings or queens, they consummate. Back in the day, people would watch the king and queen who would get married, or the people who were going to become king and queen. They would make sure that they actually watched them and saw them have sex to make sure that they actually consummated. Like, that's how important sex used to be. I'm not saying we should be watching it, but I'm just saying that's some cultures. That's what they used to do. It was important to make sure that sex was marriage and marriage was sex. If not, like that's the bringing forth of the union. Shabbat shalom to you, Emmy, and to everybody coming on. Thanks for being part of the community, right? But we want to make sure that we realize that not just in your marriage, but even with your children, even with your job, right? Oh, okay. I'm on. Be safe in there, or be safe on your travels, right? Even in your how you doing, King? How you doing? I'm sorry, I don't know if it's King or Queen. Sorry, child Dizzy, child Dizzy. I'm not sure. Thanks for being on with us. Appreciate you. And all these things, right? We're busy trying to be perfectly imperfect, right? We're busy trying to become perfectly imperfect, right? I'm not trying to really move. I'm what? Perfectly imperfect, right? I'm not right. I'm okay with this and I don't need to move. I don't need to grow. But instead of finding somebody who says that I'm okay with you being perfectly imperfect, don't find somebody who will love the imperfections, Find somebody, watch this, you ready? Find somebody who will love on your what's imperfect. Don't find somebody that will love on the perfect or love the perfect. Find somebody that will love on the perfect. Don't find somebody that will love the imperfect. Find somebody who will love on the imperfect. Did y'all catch that? It's a different mentality. And Shabbat Shalom to everybody coming on. It's a different mentality. A lot of people are not thinking about it correctly, right? We're trying to find this and that or whatever. Find somebody who will love on the imperfection. I don't need you to keep me where I am, right? But at the same time, realize I'm a human being, and that might take me a minute to develop. So love on the imperfection. What is love? Love achaba. What is love? Storge. What is love? Eros. What is love? Agape. What is love? What's the one? Storge, Eros, agape. Oh, phileo, right? What is love? Love is an action. Love is an action so powerful that it brings about description. It's also a description so powerful that it brings about love is an action that's so powerful it brings about description. Love is also a description so powerful that it brings about manifestation. Before we even talk about interracial dating and all those things or whatever, you need to find out about culture. Because not all skin folk is kinfolk, and not all Israel is Israel, right? But we believe in supporting the culture. If you don't know about a culture, then you shouldn't be worried about having a relationship with somebody and you don't know what you're going to need to support. So before we even go there, right? Before we even get to there, we have to first figure out what's perfect. See, how can somebody figure out what's perfect or imperfect in your culture and love on that if they don't know about your culture? Right? So a lot of people are stuck in the so a lot of people want to be imperfectly imperfect, but we change just one syllable. Instead of being imperfectly imperfect, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. A lot of people want to be perfectly imperfect. Sorry. A lot of people want to be perfectly imperfect, but we're going to shift one of those syllables. Instead of being perfectly imperfect, we want you to perfect the imperfection. Right? How you doing, Sister Rhonda? If I didn't say so, I think I said so already. Amen. Right? We don't want you to worry about perfecting all this or being perfectly imperfect. Be okay with being your imperfections, but don't settle for your imperfections. But once again, we have to reevaluate what's perfect. What's perfect? For example, in our culture, right? If you're Ofori or Yasrael or Israel, right? Or even West African, a lot of people don't know. You say and a lot. Now, in English, and is not something you should use that much. How you doing, Sir Stephen? In English, is not something you should use that much. But in our culture, we say and. You know, I was going to the store and I saw this was on sale. And I looked in my pocket to see if I had some change. And I figured out, oh, I didn't have enough change. And I went back out to the store. And I was like, ooh, I went back out to the car. And I realized, oh, wait a minute, I do have some money up in here. And I came back in the store and I bought right? Now, people would say that is not correct English. You must not speak like that. But in your culture, if you knew that what your language was, we use at a lot, which is the same as and. And at means either going towards a new idea, starting a new sentence, or making sure that you pay attention to what's coming up next. So you're actually using a specific thing, right? Yeah, you're actually using a specific thing to get better. And I like that. That's very true, that nothing is really going to be completely perfect in this life. But once again, even in eternity, there's still the perfecting. If you believe in the Bible, right? Read your Bible, it'll bless you. Yahweh didn't think that things were perfect, complete. He was always perfecting. That's why in kingdoms, you always what? You always perfect. You always colonize. You always gentrify. See, and in our culture, we think that gentrifying is bad, but no, making something look like yourself is not. Now, you might have a problem with the people and their culture, the way that they gentrify, right? Yeah, we do. We press toward the mark of the high calling, right? So you might have a problem. And by the way, why did Paul say that I press towards the mark of the high calling? He said, I press towards the mark of the high calling because I have not arrived yet. How you doing, Shalanda? I have not arrived yet, so I'm still pressing. Right? But when I'm pressing, I'm colonizing, right? And I need to colonize myself. When's the last time you stopped worrying about they colonizing this and that, and you started colonizing yourself? When's the last time you stopped worrying about their gentrifying this neighborhood, gentrify that? Does your house look like you? Does your house look like your culture? Are you afraid? Like, I've heard stories where people are like, I'm afraid to say shalom to people on the street or this and that or whatever. Like, if you say hello to somebody, right, you can say shalom to somebody. You can say akwa aba to somebody, or etesen in return. You can say habare, jambo, right, osayo. There's like you can speak your culture, but you've been taught that to speak your culture is wrong, or that because somebody's not in your culture, you don't speak to them in that way, and you do what? What do? You code switch, because you're in a system to where the system you're looking to the oppressor. You're in the land of your captivity, and the person that captivates you, you look towards that person to be able to provide for your family. Oh, thank you, Crystal. I appreciate it. Right. So you're in the land of your captivity, trying to make sure that the person who's captivated you is impressed with how you speak. But have you ever taken time out to construct, right? And to construct it based upon your culture? Then people start to say, oh, you're bad. You're a bad person. You're a cult. What you're doing is antiquated. People don't even realize, like, you're sitting up here. If you pay taxes, you're doing something that's antiquated. And you don't even have to. But you don't know about sovereignty because you don't know about kingdom. It's amazing how many preachers go into what you were saying in the comment section about reading the Bible correctly. Like, it's amazing how many. It's mind blowing. Literally amazing. Maze, right? Maze means the way that one thinks. Means the opposite of thinking, right? Or even muse. I'm sorry, maze means direction. Meaning the opposite of direction. In amazement, the opposite of direction. Or amusement, the opposite of thinking, right? That's why you go to amusement parks, because amusement parks allow you to not have to think and still be able to be, guided, and herded around, so that you would be able to spend money and be able to say, I had such a great time being amused, not having to think, turning my mind off, right? You're in a situation where that's today. How you doing, Sister Carrie? You're in a system where that's happening today. And they'll call you a cult. They'll say you're a bad person. They'll say you're antiquated. They say, how dare you say the children shouldn't be having sex? How dare you say the children should have a sex attached to them? How dare, right? Because it's not their culture. You're arguing, they're not arguing their culture. And so what you're having is you're having a war, whether you like it or not. And so how are you going to go to war, but you have no wall constructed? You have not perfected your wall. See, we got to talk about a different thing. You're at war every time that your child goes to school. Some of y'all don't even know, because you might not pay attention to when your children go to school, that every time after January in the school year, they have something called Black Lives Matter Week. And Black Lives Matter Week, they're going to be taught a Black Lives Matter period. And when you go down that pyramid, what is it? 13. I can't remember how many things. I guess it depends on what age and what age they are, what grade they're in. But all the way from kindergarten, pre-K, all the way up to what they're trying to give y'all now, 14th grade, and then college and all that stuff. They have it. And guess what they're going to teach? They're going to teach them about sex, because they have to teach them about sexuality. But then they describe it as gender, even though gender comes from jancha, and jancha literally means what? It means the style that people have according to what? Their culture. So men and women in different cultures have different styles. That's all we're talking about, right? All you're dealing with is culture, and you're dealing with culture clash. That's why the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence. See, read your Bible, it'll bless you, but you got to read it with the right culture. The kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. How many preachers go to get these degrees, but they never learn about monarchy? That's why in SOC University, we try to teach monarchy, right? How many people have gone do all this stuff and never had a class on monarchy, have never known how you're supposed to present yourself before a king or queen? You don't even know. If you were to go to South Africa and go to Zululand and go to particular tribe leaders, how do you present yourself to them? If you were to go to certain places in Ghana, how do you present yourself to them? Right? A king or a queen, if I were back home, I would never use anything but my right hand to talk to somebody, to speak, because the second that I do this and use my left hand, they would think that I'm trying to curse or disrespect them. So I would always use my right hand. I have to present myself different. When I eat, I only eat with my right hand. When I eat, I don't use silverware, right? Even if I don't care if it's stew, if it's soup, whatever the case might be. I don't care if it's hot, if it's cold, if it's room temperature, you eat with your hand. Matter of fact, when you saw the last supper, that what we call the Last Supper, and you see them on that table and everything spread out, they wouldn't have been sitting upright and Yashua in the center of the table and all that, somebody presented their culture to you, they would have been leaning on their side, right? And they would have been leaning on their side, more likely their left side. They would have washed their feet when they came in, not just because you got sand and stuff, and not just because of serving somebody, but also if you're going to sit on your side and your feet are going to be up at the table, not only do you need to wash your hands, but you need to wash your feet. And Yashua wouldn't have even been in the center. He would have been towards the end in the corner of like an L-shaped table, because that's where you put the person of honor at, right? They constructed, they built, they perfected the process of what you now call communion, but really is Passover. They perfected that. But because we're not perfecting the imperfect, we fell into an imperfect way where somebody took something that was complete in our culture and they said, we're going to change it to something else. You got to start perfecting the imperfect. So you just have to look to the people that Elohim will talk to you about them. Yeah, that's true. How you doing? Always blessed. So you have to realize, right, that we've been taught. How you doing, Big Ak? You got to realize that a lot of us have been mismanaged, and we've been taught the incorrect way. And so now we're talking about perfecting the imperfect and being under construction. Well, who's constructing? Who is the person that wrote the blueprint? Why is it always that we want to be perfected, but we don't ever talk about who wrote the blueprint? I want to know who's in charge here. We say that all the time, right? Somebody messes up at the store. I want to speak to the manager, right? Shalom Mazudi, how you doing? Right? I want to speak to the manager. Who's in charge here? Well, when it comes to the blueprint of life, who's in charge here? What does the word universe mean? How you doing, Lafayette? How you doing, Shirley? When it comes to the blueprint, who made the universe? What does the word universe even mean? You see, we got a problem. What does the word universe even mean? Who's in charge here? Because I need to know who made the blueprint. I'm listening to everybody else. It's always interesting. I keep hearing people say that man wrote the Bible, and I'm like, but you speak a man-made language. You write man-made stuff. You're asking me to read your man-made type comments, and yet at the same time, you're telling me I shouldn't deal with anything man-made. Right? Exactly, Sister Carrie. Right. A verse, spoken sentence. Exactly, J. Real. A verse, spoken sentence. How do I talk about a universe without first admitting that the universe is a spoken sentence? If it's not a spoken sentence, then you need to go ahead and not change and not try to redefine the word. You need to find another word, because you know what that word means. You know that you're in theory. You don't have a theory that's better than the contextual fact that the universe is a single spoken sentence. You can't talk about a multiverse without talking about the universe as a single spoken sentence. You can't do it. Right? So you have to come up with what's called a theory. A theory is not a fact. A theory is something that, hey, I can't describe something. I don't know what the fact is. I don't even want to listen to what people are telling me is a fact. So I theorize. That's why evolution is a theory. And when you read the title of it, we've shown, I don't even know if I have it up anymore, right? But we've shown y'all the title of the book plenty of times recently, right? Where and it's on Patreon for those in the Patreon kingdom. Okay, I still have it up, right? This is the theory of evolution. This is how it was written. This is what the theory of evolution was. When you talk about man-made, see, we don't even read man-made. What's up? Let's read it as what it is. Let's read it for what it is. I didn't write the book, right? Just like I didn't write the Bible. I didn't write the book. So what is this? What does this mean? And it's actually missing a part of the title, but we'll just roll with this, right? Because it should say Origin of Species: the Theory of Evolution. That's the complete title, but okay, we'll go with this, right? So the origin of species, theory of evolution, right? But the origin of species by the means of natural selection. So they're saying nature, they're saying natural law, right? Because you can't have a theory without it at least being based off of natural law. So the theory is supposed to be based off of nature. So it's the theory of what? Of evolution by means of natural selection, or if you wanted to look at it for what it is, or we don't like to put that or on there. But this is what I didn't write this once again, right? I didn't write this. This is what they put in 1859. All right. Was I alive in 1859? Heck, was the Civil War going on in 1859? Civil War of the United States of America, that is? No. Okay. So this is before my time, but it's still affecting my time. Where people keep bringing this up to me, talking about evolution. How you doing, Supernova Grand Rising T? Right? How you doing, Sister Dawn, if I didn't say so already? Right? So it's the origin of species, theory of evolution by means of natural selection, or the preservation of what? I didn't write it. The preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. They wrote something out and they're gentrified. They colonized. They said we wrote a whole new version of how we believe things went to be. And yes, somebody brought up, yes, there's people before outside of Darwin and all these different things or whatever. And by the way, some of the people they'll bring up still agreed with Darwin and still, allowed Darwin to do what he did. So they still agree with him. They still say, hey, yeah, we should look at this, because if we believe in things evolving, then we also believe that different races evolve. But it says if different races evolve from different animals, then that means that we have to preserve favored races in the struggle for life. And then if that's not enough, right? Charles Darwin is in the bottom of the title. It tells you that royalty had his back, that people who were into geology. So what is geology? Is geology out there to make sure that's there is geology something that people are using now to preserve certain races? But you'll tell me not to read the Bible, because the Bible, it said kill all these people, and the Bible says that Israel should be first, and therefore Israelites were racist, and boom, 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 blah, blah, whatever. Okay, well, if we're gonna do that, let's be faithful on both ends. Let's make sure it's across the board first. See, but you don't want to do that, because that means we have to have an honest dialogue. And we have to look at cultural conversation. See, in Israelite culture, they were not saying that just because you're not black, that means that you can't get in. Even that is a different context. Well, before there was a Jew, there were Avda. And before there was a Jew, there was Yashta, right? Before there was a Jesus, before there was a letter J, there was Yashva, right? Even in the 1611 version of the King James Version, there's no letter J for the name Jesus, because it didn't exist yet. At least wasn't being used that widely, right? But going back to this, it also tells you that Charles Darwin is what? He's Linnaean, right? And that means if he's Linnaean, that means you got to go back to Carl Linnaeus. Now, what did Carl Linnaeus say? Carl Linnaeus said, oh, we got to make sure that these people are constructed different. He said we got to make sure that white people have their own place, and Native American people had their own place, and Black people had their own place, and Asian people had their own place, not even in that order, right? And then we need them to be perfectly imperfect. We put something in order for them to be completely imperfect, and we've classified them like that, but we shall be perfectly perfect. But see, that's why you got to go under some new construction. You gotta be able to perfect the imperfect, perfect the imperfect. Find something that loves on what is imperfect, that acts upon what is imperfect to help it out, to bless it, to be greater. Sounds like I don't understand Darwin's work. Well, then tell me once again. You tell me what Charles Darwin meant. See, this is what I said. Like, watch this. And please allow this person, as long as they're respectful, because this person obviously is not jumping out the gate being respectful. They're just saying, I don't know anything. But you tell me, what did Charles Darwin mean when he wrote this book, when he wrote this title? What does that mean? You help me out, if you don't mind, since you're saying I don't comprehend Charles Darwin's work at all. What does this mean? What did Carl Linnaeus mean when he said that everybody needs to be put in 4 groups of races? What did he mean? See, gaslighting. But fine, let's go into it. Tell me what I didn't comprehend about it. By the way, Charles Darwin's only talking about 1 out of 6 of the types of evolution that there are. But you tell me. You're telling me I don't understand Darwin's work. Tell me what Darwin meant when he wrote this. Tell me why he followed Carl Linnaeus. By the way, Darwin was a lunatic by definition, not because he was crazy. Darwin was a lunatic because, okay, I'm sorry. So he meant that species adapt to their environment. Those that don't adapt become extinct. Okay, cool. So Darwin was into something called manifest destiny, by the way. Carl Linnaeus was into something called manifest destiny, which goes with the white man's burden. What do those 2 things mean? By the way, Charles Darwin was a lunatic. He worshipped the moon. Also, Charles Darwin didn't even go to school for being somebody who was a scientist. He went to school and got his degree. His family paid it off. That in a year, he got his bachelor's degree and being a preacher. So yeah, so this kind of thought process right here makes it okay with manifest destiny involved, and then his brother, I mean, I'm sorry, his cousin would write the book on eugenics. So his cousin would write the book on eugenics. What does eugenics say? Eugenics leads to the IQ test, right? And America ran over to France, like in their IQ test, saying that if you don't think like us, you aren't us. Came back, rewired it, and then did the same thing across the United States of America. What is the preservation of favored races? So what you're saying is it's okay that if a certain group of people make it, that's just natural selection. And if that's your mindset, then you do that. No, I didn't say he was loony. I said he was a lunatic. A lunatic is somebody who worships the moon. You think that lunatic means loony because you don't know the original, right? He worshiped the moon all the time, right? But you say it doesn't matter, it's not relevant. Cool. Well, why is it that you're not dealing with? He's saying that certain races should evolve more than others. Now you're trying to say that because you're trying to say it's a theory of evolution, but he's saying that certain races should be preserved because they're favored in the struggle for life. So, question: Charles Darwin, since he wrote that his race by social construct, since his race is supposed to be preserved, do you agree with that? And if you disagree with it, why do you disagree with what Darwin wrote himself? Yeah, thank you. My wife even asked, look, it'll show us that particular page. If I don't show you that particular page, how about this? Read the book. I've read it. Where he had the different races. He has a whole section of the book, literally just talking about how certain white people came from this type of creature and lower white people came from this type of creature, and he goes all the way down in order, just like Carl Linnaeus did. He made Carl Linnaeus's finding even he expanded upon it, right? But it's weird. You say research it, but you won't deal with the cover. Now you say never judge a book by its cover. Okay, I just gave you stuff that's deeper than the cover. Now why don't you open up the book and go deeper than the cover? See what I'm saying? People want to be perfectly imperfect. Allow it to stay imperfect. Don't talk about the flaws in it. We want to talk about your flaws, even though we don't know your culture. We don't even know where you're coming from, right? And by the way, when was this written? 1859. Okay. 1859. I didn't put this together. I didn't write, but I want to be perfectly imperfect. But don't love on my imperfection. Don't love. See, out of love, I would act. Love is an action. What? That's crazy to me. Like if I saw a child that was beating up another child, and I said to the child, "Why are you beating up?" And they said, "Because because I was taught that white children ain't nothing. So I, as a black child, I'm gonna beat them up because that's what my parents said." I would immediately make sure that I said, "No, that's not true at all, and let's deal with that, right?" But you're dealing with a whole thing of Darwinism that starts off with this, where they tell you he's backed up by people who are Linnaean, he's backed up by people that are royalty, he's backed up like this is royalty that did this. If you want to get deeper into it, the Roman Catholic Church helped to produce this, but because you don't know it, right? So either all of us come from the same place, but not from Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin said that we don't all come from the same place because we come from different animals. A lot of people try to say we're the first human beings. So what I'm saying is with Darwinism, fine, point out the imperfection, right? Stop trying to find the imperfection and just trying to say, I don't like you. You said his theory has nothing to do with race. Again, I sound very confused, but so his theory has nothing to do with race, but his book does. You tell me where the confusion is. I don't sound confused. I'm reading what he said. You said I seem to have changed topics. Evolution is interesting. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you don't know exactly what I was talking about. You came in on one piece of it that I was using it to describe how we need to make sure that we are constantly under construction and constantly trying to become greater, which I think that we probably should agree on that. Now, your whole thing is you didn't like that I attacked something that you're part of, that is part of your culture, it's part of your habits, it's part of the way that you think. No problem. By the way, like you don't have to agree with what I'm saying just because I'm saying it, but for you to tell me that I'm wrong completely about the fact that evolution has nothing to do with races, and yet the person who wrote the book on means of natural selection also said or equal to what? It's the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. That's the theory. That's what he wrote out. How you doing, Minister like Morel? That's what he wrote out. Okay, so it explains the change in species, but he says in his book, you've read the book, I'm assuming, because it doesn't sound. It sounds like, because if you've read the book, you're not being honest about a part of it. Like, I'm sorry to say it that way, but if you've read the book, you're not being honest about his particular thing. Now, if you want to say, let's look at other forms of evolution, there's 6 types of evolution, but the 5th type that people use is pretty much Darwinism. Okay, Cedric. All right. You want to tell me that I'm dumb, that I'm stupid, that I'm slow, that I have no reason to talk about these things. That's fine. When you're talking about these things, by the way, you just came on, so you don't know what we were talking about. But once again, the origin of species by means of natural selection, right? That's what he wrote. Preservation of favored races in the struggle for life by Charles Darwin, who was of the Linnaean class, where Carl Linnaeus said that it was okay to put races in particular order and structure. If you want to go ahead and say that I'm the one that's disingenuous, when I'm simply just telling you what he wrote out, and you don't want to open the page to the book in which he legit says that, if you don't want to do the research on your own, that's fine. I'm not here, I'm not getting paid for this. This is not SOC University, so this is not my time where I'm actually paying, people are giving donations for us to be able to help them to get degrees and stuff. If you don't want to go ahead and do that, then that's fine. Okay? I don't believe in evolution, period. But if we're going to act like it's a real thing, then then what he's saying is he's theorizing in the theory. It's still a theory. In his theory, he's saying that, hey, certain races need to be preserved, right? Because they're favored, because there's a struggle for life. So we're all struggling for life. But he said, hey, at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. And Hitler uses this as saying this was something that opened his eyes. Stalin uses this as saying it's something that opened his eyes. Heck, let's be honest. Idi Amin said it's something that opened his eyes. Baby Doc and Papa Doc, right? That's Haiti. He said it's something that opened their eyes. And these are people that you'll say are evil, but but people love talking about the Crusades, which, by the way, that was by an evil pope, because popes ain't necessarily righteous either. They love to talk about that. They love to talk about all these things done in Jesus' name. I don't even follow Jesus. I follow Yahshua. Jesus is a made-up person, half man, half Zeus. I don't follow that, right? Like, I don't follow God. I follow Elohim. It's something completely different culturally. But people get lost on that. See what I'm saying? You can see people are affected by it because you're talking about what? Culture. And all I'm saying is you want to be perfectly imperfect. You can stay perfectly imperfect all you want, but some of us, we're under construction. We're trying to perfect the imperfection. So if your whole goal is to say, we're going to just stay with something that says specifically that white people are on top and black people on the bottom, hey, that's cool. You do that over there. Me and my people, we're going to do something different. And when I say my people, I'm not just talking about even black folk or Israelites or West Africans or Cherokee, or the list goes on and on. I mix with a lot of stuff too. But guess what? I'm also talking about people that are like-minded. If we want to get rid of all these different things, if we want to get rid of this mindset, then we got to put it on the table, and we got to admit this is not what we're supposed to be. Thank you for the love bounty, right? This is not correct. This is not correct. It's a theory, and it's not even proper science, because in proper science, it's not proper scientific method. If you give me a hypothesis, you got to say if. You got to do it like this. If the theory of evolution is real, then white people are on top and black people on the bottom. And then you got to give me something that shows controls and all these different things. Not be in control, not make everything work the way you want it to work, but you got to show me specific stuff, evidence over years. And by the way, that means with humanity, whether you believe some of y'all believe it's only 6,000 years old, some of y'all believe it's 10,000, some of y'all believe it's millions, whatever, you got to show the work. And you can't show the work scientifically because you can't do proper scientific method. Just like you can't show the work for the Big Bang. Just like you can't show the work for a nebula. Just right when you say stars are born, but you've never seen it, but you say because you took pictures of stuff, that must be how stars. You're theorizing. You can't show the work. Oh, I'm sorry, Minister Select Joseph. I didn't see the mistake. Whatever you're talking about, right? And by the way, even with that, right? Everyone is equal. Is everyone equal? That's part of the problem. How do you construct yourself to have a society where individuals can't be individuals? Individuals are not equal. Individuals are individuals, but we come together as one in a society. Oh, okay. Okay. You talking to somebody else. Cool. Right. But I'm just saying, like, we have a whole different mindset. Will you perfect the imperfect? Do you believe you're in an imperfect system? Do you believe that you're in an imperfect system? If your system that you're in, if this world, if this cosmos with a K, not with a C, with a K, right? If the system that you're in is perfect, then you're not going to change nothing. That's the problem. If you believe that it's imperfect, let's perfect the imperfect, right? Let's love on the imperfect. Let's act towards the imperfect. Let's give our heart towards the imperfect. That's why Sesame Street, you got like Dave Chappelle used to joke about, right? You got that Sesame Street mentality. You know, you learned about Oscar's a grouch. Oscar lives in a trash can. He's homeless. Of course he's grouchy. But you ain't even put two and two together. And so you were taught that, and you still to this day, you see homeless people, you're like, oh, get it together, grouch. Right? You don't love on the imperfect. You say, get it together. I'm perfect. You're imperfect. Well, why are you perfect? I'm perfect because I got a job. You got a job. You toil. Where somebody uses you up. That person at least doesn't get used up. Y'all both dealing with imperfection. You getting used up. You're not even in your work. Don't even have time to homeschool. Don't even have time to go over the homework. You got to find out later on when you do your parent-teacher conference that y'all go to sometimes, right? You go to that parent-teacher conference, you got to hear from the teacher that your child ain't doing homework. You're like, wait a minute, what? I thought they were doing homework, because you don't even have time to check it because you're so captivated by the system. You're so worried about making sure that you give somebody 15 hours in a day and bragging on it, talking about, see, and I used to be this person bragging on it. My wife sitting there saying, you working yourself to death. You working yourself to death. No, you know, I got to do it. See, we got extra money now. See, I can do this and I can take care of this bill and I can go here and I can go there. Right? I can do all these different things. See what I'm doing. See what I'm doing. See what I'm doing. And then, oh, I got a hernia. See what I'm doing. See what I'm doing. See what I'm doing. I'm crying at this job. I don't want it. Boss is coming up to you, man, but you're great at this. You could take this to the next level. You could do this. You could do this. You could be this. You could be that. I could, but I can't stand it here. Amen. Yeah, Sister Barbara. Kingdom laws. Watch this. Kingdom laws don't even necessarily make us perfect as far as they perfect us, right? But remember, laws don't give rights. Laws protect rights. You have a right to be perfect. Or even in your imperfect stage, you have a right to be imperfect while perfecting yourself. Laws come and they protect your right. See, and we're trying to go outside of law, outside of natural law. Natural law does not say because somebody's a certain skin color, they're better or worse. But the theory of evolution says it. And you say that's natural law. But see, it can't be a real theory because, see, people don't know definitions. Look up in legal dictionaries. Look up in lawful dictionaries. Look up in reference books. You will discover that you cannot have a theory unless that theory is lawful. If it doesn't work in natural law, how can it be a natural means of natural selection? How you doing, Sister Shima? I didn't say so already. Thanks for being part of the community, David. You said, am I a fan of those darker people? You need to go somewhere with that. That's I don't even comprehend what that is, right? You said, how do you discover your work? You discover your work, first of all, what's the vision for you? And really your vision, see, once again, your vision is going to come out your culture. It all starts with culture. Culture informs beliefs. Beliefs inform your emotions. Your emotions inform your feelings. Your feelings inform your mood. Your mood informs your effort or energy. Your effort or energy informs your habits. Okay, thanks. Hold on, my wife just found something for us, so I'm gonna disappear on TikTok for a second. But see, I don't know, and hopefully it'll show up the right way because I'm gonna take a screenshot. TikTok does weird things with pictures, but my wife did find the page. Somebody was like, "Show me the page," where Darwin was talking about races and species, and I told you there's a whole not only page but there's a whole section. But she found a page for y'all, so give me a second. If you're on TikTok, we're gonna disappear for a hot second. I'm gonna find it and be able to take a screenshot so we can read it together. Okay. And once it's there, y'all tell me if I'm making it up. I already showed you the cover. Now somebody says, show us the page. You said, oh yeah, people have a fundamental, yeah. So hold on, I'll be right back. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just taking a screenshot, right? Thank you, babe. Hold on, I'll be right back. Because, we got to show people, because people be like, oh, you just making stuff up. So we're going to read it. Let us read this together. Let us see how this looks. Let's see what comes up here. Okay. Okay. So I kind of read it. Let me see if I can do, I'm going to try something different. So let me see if we can get the whole thing on here. Hold on. Let me see.
point out some places for you.
Oh, okay.
Because if you look at the they talk, let's see.
Because I can't read the front and the left and the right. But if you want to, it was your arm. I mean, I can just read it.
Okay. Oh, it's talking about breeding of two. Let me see.
All right, hold on 1 second. We're trying to find the page.
I mean, there's so many places on here where it's talking.
You have the pic, but you have a picture. I can just read the picture.
Oh yeah. Oh. So that paragraph's talking about. He talks like there's another theory about the origins, because this is paragraph right here. It's talking about the theory of origins, and then it talks about crossing. He talks about species and races. He doesn't just talk about species. So he's talking about people and about animals.
Well, each person is supposed to be a different species too when you read the book. So if every person is a different species, because there's like 8 species that he comes up with. So if there's 8 species, he's saying each person. So for Charles Darwin, each race is a different species.
And he's talking about mixing of the races, as those people being mongrels.
There you go. So watch this. So somebody said that this isn't what it says. Okay, let's go like this. It says here we go. We ready? It says the doctrine of the origin. Oh, I'm just gonna read this one thing if you want your phone. But, the doctrine of the origin of our several domestic races from several aboriginal stocks. All right. So he's saying each stock has its own what? Origin. Aboriginal means what? It's got its own origin. So he's saying white people come from different things, and Mexican people, if you will, I'm just using modern terms. That's not what he's saying. But let me use what he said. Certain white people come from certain things, and lesser Europeans come from certain things. Then people from Africa come from a certain stock, and then people who are native come from a different stock, and then certain like sub-Saharan African people, they come from different places, etc. Right? So it says the doctrine of the origin of our several domestic races from several aboriginal stocks has been carried to an absurd extreme by some authors. They believe that every race, so this is what people were saying back then, that every race which breeds true, let the distinctive characters be ever so slight, has had its wild prototype. Wild prototype, right? Why do they call you savage, right? Sauvage en anglais, or savage, is a French word. Sauvage, it means wild. So when they call you wild in English, they're calling you savage. All right. At this rate, there must have existed at least a score of species of wild cattle, as many sheep, and several goats in Europe alone, and several within Great Britain. One author believes that there formerly existed in Great Britain 11 wild species in sheep particular to it. Excuse me. When we bear in mind that Britain has now hardly one peculiar mammal, and France but few distinct from those of Germany, and conversely, and so with peculiar. Remember, by the way, the Bible even says stuff like you're a peculiar person. See the language. We don't know older language. So like a peculiar people, a peculiar animal, a peculiar mammal. So they're using certain words. And France, but few distinct from those of Germany, and conversely. And so with Hungary, Spain, but that each of these kingdoms possesses several peculiar breeds, whence could they have been derived. So these several countries do not possess a number of the whole world, which I fully admit have probably descended from several wild species. I cannot doubt that there has been an immense amount of inherited variation. Who can believe that animals closely resembling the Italian greyhound and bloodhound, blah, blah. Okay, I'm a fast forward a little bit. Okay, so watch this. So moreover, the possibility, so all these things that just talked about, all those things that are happening, says these are animals in their wild state. Now, this is where we're going to go. Same page. All right. Moreover, the possibility of making distinct races by crossing has been greatly exaggerated. So, in other words, there aren't all these different races, all these different people, whatever, which people would say they would agree with, right? So that sounds all fine and great until he's talking about that you're all different. But keep on going, right? There can be no doubt that a race be modified by occasional crosses if aided by the careful selection of those individual mongrels. Okay, so if you mix races, according to Charles Darwin, see the language, he's calling you what? A mongrel. How you doing, Cash? How you doing, Shirley? He's calling you what? A mongrel. What is a mongrel, by the way? A mongrel is a mixed dog. right? Be careful when you say all men are dogs. See, you don't even know where we get this language from, right? We got to get under construction. We got to get back to the original. All right. I'm sorry, babe. I'm almost finished. If aided by a careful selection of those individual mongrels which present any desired character. That's what Willie Lynch talked about. Willie Lynch came before Charles Darwin. Interesting how Willie Lynch can influence somebody else, and y'all don't even know. And you say, well, no, that's not true. Charles Darwin never mentions him. He's using the same word. He's using the same language. So if it wasn't him directly, then somebody else who agreed with Willie Lynch is telling them something. Remember, though, if you know about Charles Darwin's story, his uncle not only hated anything as far as theology, his uncle hated anybody that wasn't what he considered to be his race. And his cousin, his uncle's son, would take what Charles Darwin wrote and write the book on eugenics. But people say we don't know what we're talking about. I'm just giving you facts, contextual facts, context and facts. Here we go. Right? So mongrels which present any desired character, but that a race could be obtained nearly intermediate between two extremely different races or species. I can hardly believe. In other words, hey, just because a black and a white person come together, I don't think that mixed race is actually a race. They're just mongrels. They're mutts. They're mixed. I put that there. All right. I didn't add that in. Okay. The offspring for the first cross between two pure breeds. This is, you know what? Right after this, we're going to read Willie Lynch. I want y'all to see, they say the same thing, right? I legit, if I didn't know any better, my wife didn't tell me what this was, she read this, I would have thought she was reading the Willie Lynch letter. I'm going to show you in a second. Watch this. But anyways, extremely uniform and everything seems simple enough. But when the mongrels are crossed one with another for several generations, hardly two of them will be alike. And then the extreme difficulty, or rather utter hopelessness of task becomes apparent. Certainly a breed intermediate between two very distinct breeds could not be without extreme care and long continued selection. Nor can I find a single case on record of a permanent race having been disformed. In other words, what's the name of, thank you, babe, I appreciate you. So watch this. In other words, now let's look at the title of his book again, and then we're going to read the Willie Lynch thing. See, you guys are the ones bringing up this topic. I wasn't even trying to go here, but we can roll with you. This was not what I had planned out today. So he just told you the title of his book is what? The Preservation for the Struggle of Survive, or the Preservation of Favored Races, and in the struggle for life. He was just talking about how life struggles, and he said if people mix together and they go outside of the races that we present, then guess what? He said, as far as I'm concerned, those races can't exist anymore. They will not be able to go. Right? He said that there's no race that I recognize, that my people recognize. He said there's no race that we recognize that says what? He says there's no race that we recognize that didn't come from one of these races that I'm going to present to you in this book. He said there's other people saying different things, right? He admits there's other people out there. See, I'm not saying that there's nobody else who's ever thought about something as far as evolution. What I'm trying to tell you is that he's telling you, look, as far as the stuff y'all talk about with Darwinism and you say I don't comprehend it, he's saying as far as what I'm writing, I'm Linnaean, right? I'm from a school of thought from Carl Linnaeus that says that everybody got to get in a specific race. I think that Carl Linnaeus was great to start with, but I'm going to give you a few more classifications, right? Some more schisms, some more division, right? And once I divide it into these, this is pretty much it. And you ain't going to tell me nothing different. That's what Charles Darwin wrote. So you can tell me that I'm wrong on how I look at Charles Darwin, but that's what your boy wrote. Right? Now you can tell me all day long, I don't know what I'm talking about. But but if you're telling me that what he's saying is wrong, then I don't know why you're arguing with me, because I'm telling you that I agree that what he's saying is wrong. I'm telling you what he said, but you're telling me I don't comprehend it. That's why we have to go through our own construction. We have to go through our own mindset change. Now let me go back to this Willie Lynch letter, right? We've dealt with this before, in our lessons, but let's just go to this Willie Lynch. If you want to read it with me, because some of y'all, are telling me how you doubt everything that I'm saying. And so if you want, type in Google Willie Lynch PDF, go to the second one that's going to pop up on your screen. We've done this so many times, I even know exactly which one. We're going to scroll down. I've already shown you how it talks about how they're going to take a person and they're going to break them up into pieces and do all that stuff. And they literally broke men in half in front of people and whipped them to the point of death and made sure they reversed your nature. And the anomaly is if you ever become a husband or a wife for all these different things, etc. Right? But they said they're going to breed you. He said exactly what's going on. right? He talked about what? Now, Willie Lynch used to, I'm sorry, Charles Darwin was talking about mongrel. Mongrel this, mongrel that. What is mongrel? Mongrel is a mixed breed, right? A dog, a mixed breed. How you doing, brother Jermaine? Right? It's a mixed breed. Yeah, he likens us to horses in the Willie Lynch letter. So let's see what Willie Lynch said. And let's see if you see any of the same stuff. That's why we talked about that 5-piece. Those of y'all who've been on, or if you want to go to the YouTube channel, or if you're on part of the Patreon family as well, you can see the pictures I put up there. But go to that and look up that 5-piece. That 5-piece where you're dealing with lost cause rhetoric that came from what? We dealt with doctrine of discovery, white man's burden, manifest destiny, and the theory of evolution. They all happened at the same, just about, not all of them, but just about at the same time. If they didn't happen at the same time, they were all interacting and working together at the same time. And they still work together because people won't admit the problem. Like we talked about yesterday, how do you solve a problem if there is no problem? Like we talked about today, how do you perfect something if you don't have any imperfection? You came from an imperfect thought process, especially when it comes to your culture and your people and your diaspora. Okay, so let's read this. This is right in the Willie Lynch letter. I told y'all you could Google Willie Lynch letter PDF and go to the second option that you're going to have on your screen. You can go to page 3, and he was just talking about how things breed together, this and that, or whatever. Let's read what Willie Lynch said. 1712. So this book we're talking about was what, 1859, 1712. So let's see, 1812. Then we got what? So 1812, then we got 1822, 1832, 1842, 1852, add on 7 years. So we got 147 years apart that they say in the same thing. 147 year stretch. We have a demarcation now. They were saying this here, they were saying this here, and we remain perfectly imperfect. They needed this system to be intact so that people would have power. Y'all see that? So we got to reconstruct ourselves and our mindset to get out of this. Okay, watch this. It says this: crossbreeding N-words. And so if you turn to it, it's the last full paragraph right before it says control the language in bold, right? So it says crossbreeding N-words mean taking so many drops of good white blood. This is what it says. I didn't write it. Okay. I didn't write it. Okay, you ready? It says crossbreeding N-words mean taking so many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many N-word women as possible, varying the drops by the various tone that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until what? Until what? Until another cycle of color appears as you desire. Why? Because these are not human beings, and as Charles Darwin taught, these are not people who fit into. This is not a new race of people. This is something that we created, and they won't be able to survive in the struggle. So if they die, so what? We'll just breed more. We'll just make more. Okay. What this means is this: put the N-words and the horse in a breeding pot. Mix some assess and some good, or mix some assess and some good white blood. And what do you get? You get a multiplicity of colors of, and I'm quoting, right? And I'm quoting, all right? You get a multiplicity of colors of ass backward, unusual N-words running around, or running, tied to a backward ass, long-headed mule. The one productive of itself, the other sterile. The one constant, the other dying. We keep the N-word constant, for we may replace the mules for another tool. Both mule and N-word tied to each other, neither knowing where the other came from, and neither productive for itself, for without each other. So he's even talking about stuff that we know happened in Georgia in the 1900s. We go ahead and we have your parents sign with an X because we didn't teach them how to read. We didn't breed them for that. And then we go into their house because they signed a document. We take 12 and 14-year-old girls and we take them to the hospital, and we legit make it so that they'll never have children, ever. We take the choice away from them. People keep talking about choice and all that, freedom of choice. We take the choice from them. Because in this culture, that's what you do. And nobody will ever know where they came from. That's the goal. Never know where you came from. Remember, he said if in the same letter, Willie Lynch said that if you were to ever find out, like whenever you find something tangible, the mind wants to recorrect itself. So whenever somebody finds something tangible about themselves, then what happens? People will come in and start telling you why that's not real. Whenever the mind runs into Mansa Musa and actually realize, wait, that's a real person, then we say, oh, but they were blah blah, they were Muslims, da da, as if being a Christian's better. Whenever you find evidence that King James, 1611 King James version, that his parents were African and therefore he was African. Oh, well, we hate all kings anyways. It doesn't matter. Whenever you find something tangible, they say, we'll take it away. Whenever you realize that up until the 1980s, we still were beating the brakes off of everybody as far as making sure that fathers and mothers who had first got together, there were always fathers and mothers in our homes. It wasn't until they put crack into our communities that all of a sudden we had this bad divorce rate, and now we don't live with each other, and now we fight against each other. But as soon as you find that, then they'll start making sure, well, let's make sure Gloria Steinem, who's a CIA operative, we're going to get her to talk to a little girl, and had a little girl start writing books. A 16-year-old little black girl start writing books telling black women how to make sure that they hate black men. That's legit. That's not even a falsehood. There's nothing false I said about that at all. That's contextual. Where religion just means what people steadily do as a legion, what you repetitively do. If you drink water every day, you religiously drink water, right? It's not about your religion is fine, right? But that's why they used to have a song back in the day in the church, right? They used to have a song that said, "Do you have good religion?" Right? Good. In other words, they were talking about, is it constitutional? Is it valuable? If your religion ain't valuable, what's the point? If what you do every day ain't helping nobody, then please keep that to yourself, right? If you praying, but your prayers don't go no higher than the ceiling, keep that to yourself, right? So the next part of the letter, it says crossbreeding completed. We just talked about crossbreeding completed for further severance of what? Crossbreeding completed for further severance from their original beginning. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against what? Origins, against principalities, right? Crossbreeding completed for further severance from their original beginning, from their principalities, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new N-word and the new mule, and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. In other words, if we're going to control you, we're going to change that language up, ain't we? See, that's why people don't like me sometimes, because you'll say, well, the universe shows. And I'm like, well, what's the definition of universe? And somebody says, well, we changed the definition of universe. No, you changed it, but I'm going back to the mother tongue. Willie Lynch said, if we take you away from the mother tongue, you can't speak your language no more. What you going to do? I want to talk about the mother tongue. When it first came out, when it was first birthed out of the mother, when it was born, on its born day, that word, when it was created, what did it mean? Universe means uni, a verse, single spoken sentence. So don't talk to me about the fact that I'm wrong to think that somebody could speak the universe into existence and the universe had to come into a big bang on its own, when you don't even realize the big bang came from somebody writing out Gaia. You don't even know who Gaia is, and you don't know what happened. How you doing, Jermaine? Jermaine McCall. We got a couple Jermaines on, right? So if you don't know the value of that, but you're trying to talk to me about it, you're having a bad conversation. And they don't like the fact that I point out, no, the mother tongue. Why? Because if I separate you from the mother tongue, both these people who call N-words, and by the way, y'all forgive me? Well, you know what? I'm going to say the word. I'm going to make sure I'm not allowed to say the word, at least not in this format, right? And thank you. Yeah, if you're on YouTube, you want to hit that like button, subscribe button, all that great stuff, share it, and hit the notification tab so y'all can keep getting these videos when we come out. You can be notified. Please let us know, or please do so. But you know how people be like, oh, yeah, the N-word with the A on it. We call it the N-word with the A on it because we gave that word power. We gave that word power. The N-word with the A on it. We gave that word power. Look, I understand the Niger and Niger and Negus and Negus, right? And all these different things in Nigeria or Nigeria even. I know that that's actually something that came from us, right? But when you talk about this N-I-G-G with that little A on the end of it, when you're talking about that word, you didn't make up that word. You didn't make up that word. People be on some foul stuff. We made up that word, so that word has power. No, you didn't. You act like only black people have ever said it with an A on the end. It was white slave masters that used to call you that. And you know what? Since y'all believe movies more than contextual facts, how about this? Go watch Django. Right? Go watch Django. See, what you guys don't know is the NIGG with that hard ER on the end. That's how people from other countries called you that, especially in England and other places where they learned the king or the queen's English because they spoke proper English. But in the South and in a lot of parts of the North where they owned you too, and in parts of Canada and even parts of Mexico and the Caribbean, and the list goes on, they called you that with the A at the end because they didn't speak English the same way that they spoke the Queen's English. So you think you came up with that word and it's talking about we're going to take power. That's our word. It's not even your word. Somebody taught that to you, and now you sitting up there trying to act like you came up with it. You said when you attack a culture and not a system, you're chasing your tail. True. But the system comes out the culture. What system exists without a culture? And what I'm trying to say is before somebody gave us a system or culture or language, and I'm not even sure if we disagree necessarily, I'm just saying, in general, right? So when you're looking at the system and you're saying, see, we call ourselves this word with an A on the end, that's not even your word. If you want to call yourself what you called yourself, call yourself negro. Y'all think that negro is a Spanish word. Negro is one of the oldest ancient ways of talking about West Africans that ever existed before we knew of a such thing as Spain, because Spain didn't become a country until 1491. What you talking about? And the people in Spain learned a lot of their words from you Moors who were over there putting 11 universities in there in what wasn't even a country yet. It wasn't until Queen Isabel, who was enamored with her grandparents and the tales of old of the Crusades, and she got with Ferdinand, and they took up 2/3 of Spain and then fought the Moors that were in the 1/3 of Spain and defeated them, enslaved some of them, killed some of them, and then sent the rest packing. And then she went to the Pope after she got with Columbus and said, hey, can we go look for the land of Vacheroth, which a lot of people don't even know. That's in your Apocrypha. It talks about the land. They used the Apocrypha to say that they were going to find your people. You said yes, but the LeBron kept talking to the lesbians. Like, I mean, I don't know what you both have to do right now with each other right now, but I guess so. I guess. I don't see I'm sorry. I was talking about so much stuff. I can't remember what I was talking about, so maybe I'm off on it. But what I'm trying to say is, like, we don't even know the story. We're listening to these people and they're telling you they're going to separate you from yourself. They used you. They used your word that your churches say, don't read this book of the Bible. But they found what they call the New World Doctrine of Discovery, part of that 5-piece. They used the Doctrine of Discovery and made it official the year after, even though they had been using this in 1452. They made it official in 1493. Why? Because in 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He got back there in 1493. They said, we're going to protect you from this point on. Go ahead and keep on doing what you're doing. And Haiti say amen. Hey, what's up? We were just talking about Haiti. Right? So crossbreeding completed. For further severance from their original breeding, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new N-word and the new mule and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. Language. Now watch this. This is why you got to go into construction. You got to perfect the imperfect. You got to go on the fact that we've been going off of imperfect language for our culture, and we got to begin to perfect it. Nobody should be telling us how to speak our language unless it's based upon stuff that has to do with us. And we should be the ones to be able to verify it. You don't believe it? Read your Bible. It'll bless you. Revelation chapter 3, verses 7 through 9. Yahshua says, I'm the one that's holy. I'm the one that's true. I'm the one that holds the key of David, or the key of David. David means beloved. David actually means beloved, right? But he's talking about the lineage, right? So he comes out of there and then he says, I'm going to open doors that no man can shut, and I'm going to shut doors that no man can open. Then he says the same thing that he basically said in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. He says, therefore, you guys are chosen. You guys are Yahshua. He says that there are people that say that they are you and they're not, and they're the synagogue of Satan. He says, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have everybody come, and these people to come and sit at your feet and worship. Not that they're going to worship you, but they're going to learn from you on proper worship. Why? Because Romans chapter 10, verse 2 says that we have a zeal for Elohim. It's just not according to knowledge yet. So we got to learn who we are. So why is that important? Well, in Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, back to where I was saying, he says, I will show the world that I have always loved you. Not that I love you more, but that I've always loved you. Why? Because Deuteronomy 28:68 stuff, you were taking on ships. And everybody said you wasn't nothing. And we already showed you guys earlier this week. We showed you guys that on paper, right? When we told you that you were necessary, we talked about you were necessary. We showed you on paper that you can see where Jews said that they owned Israelites. And they said they owned Israelites that had Negroid features, that they said that we had like big, genitalia or whatever. That's part where that whole thing comes, that all black people had large genitalia, etc. Right? They said that you had large noses. They said that you had dark skin. They proclaimed you as the Israelites. By the way, in 1700s, you had a map. Literally, you had a map. You can go look it up. Negro land. Negro land was up in one place, and you had Guinea that was down in the second half. That was West Africa. And in Guinea, right next to Negro land, there was a place called, this is where on the map where it says this is where the scattered Israelites are. There's another place that said this is the kingdom of Judah. And those were people that were enslaving you, but still saying who you were. But still to this day, right? Because my tribe, West Africa, Shwit, still to this day, we are recognized. They won't recognize as being Israel. They call us Beta Israel. We can't be Alpha Israel. We can't be on the level of them. But they'll say, you're Beta, so we got to at least acknowledge you. Now, they ain't going to give you no money. But they'll say, well, we'll at least acknowledge you. But since you're not on the same level as us, we don't really got to share any of this riches that are coming in. Just like they do in America with all these Native Americans. And they'll say, yeah, we'll acknowledge the fact that a lot of y'all have to be us, but we're not going to give you no money. We're not going to allow you to come together. See, and so when I talk about the imperfect, I'm trying to perfect the imperfect. If you really wanted it to work the way you say you want it to work, then you should be bringing everybody together. Why is it that what you're talking about has not brought us together, but it keeps bringing us further apart? And then you get mad at me. You say, well, it's taking y'all apart. No, what happens with us is I'm done trying to save the world, and I'm done trying to be connected to a wicked, disgusting system that is, that decreases us. And right, we keep trying to decrease we'll go ahead and decrease ourselves from your system, that Yahweh might increase, give the increase in his system. As he increases, we shall increase, right? We're done with it. I'm not here to save the world. Anybody who's in the world that wants to come out of it, come on, right? But I'm not here to save the world. The S has been off my chest for a minute. I realize that I'm not Superman, right? I'm comfortable with being in my culture with my people, loving on them and loving on Yahweh. And anybody who wants to be grafted into those people, as soon as you graft in, you are my people. And whatever I got coming, you're going to have it coming too. That's the way it is. So we still working together as one. You're trying to say that I'm trying to say that we're separate from everybody and we're racist and we hate people. No, we're trying to make sure that people comprehend. If you're tired of people being racist, then come on with us. We're not racist. If you're tired of people saying that even though you are very creative, we're not going to give you credit for your creation, come on with us, where the creator will give you credit for being creative. What we're trying to say is that before somebody asks the question, do you believe in interracial relationships? We're saying first and foremost, do you have the same culture? Because if you have the same culture, it doesn't matter what color you are, then you can actually come together. But you can't talk about color and not talk about culture. It is impossible. Or the problem is, in your system, it is possible. It's possible to deny that people don't see color, right? But live off of system to where you got color. You don't believe me? Yeah, I don't see color. All right, how did the Bank of England get rich? They saw color. How did the Church of England get rich? They saw color. Queen Elizabeth, we're so sad, but we're so thankful to see her, man. I've been over to the mausoleum where Kwame Nkrumah, his body was taken, and his wife's body is there. Right? I've been to the mausoleum, and I've seen the pictures that Queen Elizabeth was there in Ghana over all these things and over our people. Right? I pray that Queen Elizabeth got her stuff together. At the end of the day, I don't have a heaven or hell to put her in. But I've been to the places where I've seen this stuff. I've walked next to the people who know this. I've stood in Freedom Square where we celebrated our freedom. What you talk? You know what I'm saying? What you talking about? People don't know what they're talking about. When you go and you look at these places, you see what happened. I've been to the places where I've seen the oxen. I know what equally yoked means. Right? I had to reconstruct the mind. I had to love the imperfect. I had to love on it. I didn't just say I'm perfectly imperfect, and so if I'm ignorant, I'm just ignorant. But praise God, no. I said like if I learned that God is a Germanic deity that was created, and His name was always Elohim, and He told me to have no other Elohims before Him, then I don't have anymore. Right? You hear what I'm saying? Thank you, B. Will. Appreciate you. You hear what I'm saying? I've been there, done that. Why do I say that we need to make sure our sisters go back to being divine and being wives and being made to feel secure? You know why? Because I've had sisters that are those strong, independent Black women that said, hey, you know what? I don't want that Willie Lynch thing on me. Willie Lynch is the one that taught us to be strong and independent. We didn't call ourselves strong and independent before, because how can anybody be part of a society if they're independent? No man should be independent and no woman should be independent. No child should be independent. We should not all be dependent either. We should be interdependent. I need you, you need me. It was sisters who told me that. This was Kofi _40, the original one, where my wife said it, and I was like, I never heard a sister tell me that. She was like, well, yeah, I'm kind of tired of always being strong, this, that, or whatever. I kind of heard a little bit, but, my wife saying it made it really ring in my head. So I put out a survey, and it was sisters that kept coming up and saying, yeah, we're kind of tired of this. We're kind of done with this. Like, we really don't want to always have to be strong, to always have to be independent, to always have to make decisions. Like, when's somebody going to help me out? I didn't come across that just because I feel like that or just because I have some ancient, archaic way of seeing things. It was the sisters that told me that. Now, I'm not saying every sister agrees. I'm just saying it was a heavy majority. I think it was something like 90-something% of y'all on the survey said yes. Thank you for the love. Appreciate that, Shalonda. Right? I didn't come up with that. I learned it. And then I studied it. And then I brought it before the Most High. And I said, you know what? If everybody's saying it, if my wife's saying it, if their sisters backed it up, then I brought it to the Most High. The Most High was like, look in your word, read your Bible, it'll bless you, Kofi. And I was like, dang. I repented of what I did, and I simply did what y'all told me to do. Y'all taught me that. It was my sister, it was my wife, it was my daughter, it was my mother, it was my, you know what I'm saying? It was my aunts, it was those of you around the diaspora. Y'all taught me that. See, I had to reconstruct. I had to love the imperfect. I had to love on the imperfect. I couldn't just be perfectly imperfect. And I'm cool with just being imperfect. No, somebody said, hey, you might need to check this out. Right? You might need to check this out. Love the setup the word has. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said, you might need to check this out, Kofi. You out here preaching. You out here representing us. If you're going to represent us, my wife, like, you're going to represent us correctly. I'm not just doing this on my behalf or just so that some people will be like, oh, we really like what you had to say. Thank you, may you for the love. I'm doing this because y'all said it. That's when I became an advocate for real, for real. When I was into feminism, I had sisters come and they told me, and even some of our great sisters that are out there speaking around the world, like Angela Davis and others, right? But I had sisters that were coming. What's her name? Told me that too. I forget her name. Girl in Utah, at least she was in Utah, and she was over the BLM chapter over there or whatever. Like people like them, people that y'all would consider celebrity, like people were contacting me like, yeah, like, it's not about feminism, right? And even intersectionality don't work for us really either, but that's the closest thing that we got. So if you want to talk about anything, at least mention intersectionality. That's why I started talking about it, because y'all told me to do that. Yeah, Alex, they take her stuff down all the time too, so it'd be hard to keep up with her names. But yeah, Alex something, And she would say that, and look, real talk, she married to a white man and would have her white man come on the videos and stuff and would have him come on and check him. Because she'd be like, it's about culture. If you're going to be with me, it's about culture, right? So I'm just saying, I learned this from y'all. And we took contextual facts, not just facts by itself, but contextual facts, right? The context that we're talking about really makes it cultural facts. And people don't want to go down that road. That's one of the classes that we're providing, by the way, when we're going to start, right? But I think it's the Monday of the 26th. I think now we got that together. It's on the survey that we sent out. But people don't know, like, what's cultural facts? What's context? What's context for us? How did our sisters move? People always talk about, who did you believe in before the white man came? How about this? What was husband and wife like before the white man? The social construct. But what did husband and wife look like before that? Some of y'all don't even know, when we talk about birth and stuff, that women didn't even give birth laying on their back until recent in time. They used to give it the way they're supposed to, straight up and down. Why did that change? Who changed it? A lot of people don't know. It was a perversion. It was somebody who had a sick and twisted mindset about sex and therefore wanted to see birth happen. That's why you give birth on your back. When did they start giving you drugs? When you were giving birth? Who started doing that? Did you ever used to take drugs? Hey, how you doing, Rufus? Did you ever used to take drugs? Yeah, interdependent, intergenerational. There you go, right? If you're interdependent, you start thinking about other generations too. You never used to be drugged up. And people said, well, they didn't have drugs and they didn't have somebody could put it in your spine. No, they didn't, but people took drugs before childbirth existed. People could chemicalize things and focus on certain things to be able to get a high. Even if it was natural highs, people did cocaine. Back to the times of Kemet. That's how we know Kemetic people came over here, because there's people in Kemet, right? We know that the coca plant is not native to Africa, yet there's people in Kemet who actually had the coca plant in them, even when they exhumed their bodies to this day. So you can get high. You know, there's certain berries. My wife could probably tell me, I can't remember the one I'm trying to remember, but there's certain berries that she's shown me. So like, you better not eat that thing when it gets to be a certain thing. I know the color of it. I know the size of it, all that. If you're going to eat it, you can only eat one a day. That's how powerful it is. It'll mess around and knock you out. It'll mess around and knock you out, even if it's in its whole form. I can only imagine what happens if they try to isolate, a compound or something like that, or isolate a part of the formula. That thing probably wipe you out for real, right? But there was a culture that came with it, and we don't know it. This is why we're talking about constructing. Before we come together and start talking about constructing the homestead, constructing the buildings, constructing the shipping containers, constructing the tiny homes, constructing this, constructing that, moving this, tilling the land, all these different things that have to happen. And they have to happen. They will happen. But you better make sure this is constructed. Or else all you do is you'll take all that nonsense and you'll bring it to this new place. If you came out of a marriage and you got a divorce, and in our culture, sex is marriage and marriage is sex. So you came out that last thing and you came out with children and you came out with drama and you came out with this and that or whatever. And yeah, praise Yah that he works all things out, but it wasn't necessarily his will. And you weren't a wife yet and he wasn't a husband yet, and all these different things that are happening, right? Or vice versa. You were a husband and she wasn't a wife yet, right? I'm not talking just about one sex. I'm talking about us all. Well, guess what you got to do? When you get ready, now you got to start the purification process. You got to start colonizing yourself. You got to start gentrifying yourself. You got to start colonizing your home. You got to start colonizing your paperwork. Everything about you needs to say you. Everything about you needs to say you. Right? If you don't keep your European name, like I got European names that I use for certain things. I got African names I use for certain things. I got Israelite names I use for certain things. The list goes on and on, right? But everything about you better say you, and it better be something specific to making you greater and making your community better. You said making the journey is one thing, but you got to be ready for the destination. Exactly. That's why we're destination oriented first. What is the vision? If you know the vision, you know where you're headed. If you know where you're headed, now you go back to the beginning, or if you want to say where I am presently at this place in construction, and I'm going to start here. And my purpose is every day getting closer to what I envision. And now I have the proper value put on it. Right, we're gonna talk more about that. Vision. We always talk vision, purpose, value at some point when we get to our 4 hours of power. So when we do September 17th on Zoom, and we have y'all on and everything, and I've actually put some of the stuff up already on TikTok and YouTube and stuff, and we'll make sure we complete that. We got quite a few different things we got to figure out. Make sure we get this Day of Atonement stuff and the convocation in October, and then the Feast of Trumpets coming up on the 25th, and then September 17th, 4 hours of power. That's why we're not going to do our, our SOC meeting today, because we're going to be really close. You said I'm hallucinating? Okay. So yeah, you got to be in a particular place to where you got these things together. Right, you have to be in a particular place to where you have these things going on, right, in your mind, and you have to be ready for these things. Right, you got to colonize yourself. Where are your reparations? That's why we talk about self reparations, inward reparations. You keep waiting. When are you going to pay me? When are you going to tell me that I'm great? I'm tired of this. When are you going to treat me like a human being? When are you going to make sure that I can have land? When are you going to stop redlining? When are you going? At some point, you got to stop saying, if you ain't done it yet, you just ain't going to do it. People come on and ad hominem. They just make fun of you. Right? If people are showing they're not going to start making fun of you, why would I worry about their being serious about my plight? If my plight makes them have to make fun, right? And this plight is a plight. It means like I'm going down. I'm in the airplane. I'm going down, and you're laughing at me. Let me roll out. Let me go ahead and have something for us, right? People have been laughing at you. They've been telling you ain't nothing. Some family members been telling you ain't nothing. Heck, you used to look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself you weren't nothing. Some people, in your depression, clinical depression or otherwise, at a certain point, why not come out of that? I challenge you today, right? We're going to be short because we got to give time to Sister Sharice and Minister Sonia coming together in front of us on the podcast in a little bit at 10 a.m. Eastern New York time. But I challenge you as we get ready to take our leave. Oh, okay, cool, Adonis. Thanks for being on, right? I challenge you today in your reconstruction of self. I challenge you to stop looking for everybody else and to look towards what's been put in you. That's why I challenge you to study this. Don't listen to what I said and just be like, oh, I like this dude. You know, he seemed different. He seems like something that I'm trying to get into. So I'm just going to listen to whatever he has to say. I challenge you to study what I'm saying. That's why we made sure. That's why my wife came out here, right? Because she believes in what I'm doing, and she's a help me, and she backs up her husband. And so she saw me, you know, people were talking about, oh, we need the proof, or we need the evidence, and give us a page, and blah, blah. And I was like, you can read the book for yourself. But what did my wife come out and do? She said, don't believe it just because Kofi said it, right? She said, I'm going to make sure that y'all see it. Look, boom. Right? She said, here it is. Put it on the table. Now you can take what we said and say it's wrong, or you can take what we say and see it's right. And then we backed it up. Let's go to Willie Lynch to see if they were saying the same thing 147 years prior. 147-year gap between the two. Are they saying the same thing? 1712, 1859? Seems like they are. Right? Get it for yourself. Inward reparations, selfward reparations, right? Self-worth towards selfward reparations, right? Like we keep looking for reparations. Somebody else repairs. The word pare, P-A-R-E, it means to cut. Hey, repair me. Keep cutting me. Keep cutting me. They've been cutting you for a long time. They've been pruning you for a long time, and you ain't coming out like a diamond. Something wrong. If I'm gonna be a lump of coal, and I'm gonna go through all this pressure, and I'm gonna go through all this fire, and I'm gonna go through this whole purification process, and then you're gonna look at me to see if I'm valuable, and then you're gonna cut me again, and then look at me again. I should at least increase in value during that process. Thank you, Don Poopy. I appreciate it. Right? You said you practice yogic science. What you're saying now coincides with your beliefs. I mean, that's great. Some things coincide, some don't. You know, we have different beliefs as far as certain things that yogis may or may not teach. And, you know, because you can't have Hinduism without yogiism. You can't have yogiism without Hinduism. That's the ancient principle, right? I didn't say it exactly correct, but that's the ancient, Hindu principle, right? Even Buddhism kind of falls into that same thing, at least modern versions of Buddhism. But yeah, but we're not going to disagree on everything for sure. And we should make the main thing the main thing. But once again, first things first, what are you going to do to repair yourself? If I'm right, like if they've been cutting on us and telling us, hey, see, we cut this out of your life. Why aren't you acting like us? Well, okay, fine. So I cut my people out. I left my community. Why won't you treat me the same? Okay, I became LeBron James. Why you spray the N-word on the side of my house? Like I made it to the pinnacle, and I became the first Steph Curry. You know, I became Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. If you know who that is, that's Chris Jackson. Look that up. Chris Jackson, LSU basketball player, becomes Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. Decides he doesn't want to go ahead and stand for the national anthem. But he was the first Steph Curry. He was Curry before there was a Steph Curry. All right, but all of a sudden, hey, we don't like you. We don't like you because you won't go ahead and do a thing. And the NBA, who says that they're so, there's so much into involving everybody, they got rid of him, and ain't nobody said nothing. They got rid of him without the fanfare of Colin Kaepernick. Mahmoud Abdul Rauf still to this day could go out and grind and probably get you about 15 to 18 points a game, and that man like 50. Gray hair and everything. Came out to the 3-on-3 league and was making people look crazy. He don't have the stamina no more, but you saw that shot. Before that stamina would run out, you get 5-6 minutes. You like, this man might be the greatest of all time. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I'm just trying to say they took him out. Why do we keep getting cut? Hey, I cut it. I cut my language out. I stopped speaking my language. Y'all said, y'all told me I was an African booty scratcher. I know some of y'all heard that term before. Y'all told me I was an African booty scratcher. Y'all told me that my hips wasn't this. You told me that my lips was too big. You told me that, okay, I didn't change the color of my skin. Come on, Sammy Sosa, right? Come on, what's her face? Stacy Dash. Come on, Lil Kim. Come on. What's it? Actress, African actress. Everybody used to think was beautiful back in the day. African actress that everybody used to talk about how beautiful she was. What's her name? Usher dated her somewhat recently. Whatever. You said Jesus of narrative name is even in the Tibetan book of the Yogic University 3,000 years ago. Yeah, problem with that though is that that's a rewritten book. The letter J didn't even exist until after that. And they probably had a J sound in there, but they didn't talk about him as Jesus or Yesus. And if they did, they were talking about his nickname, which was given to him by Pontius Pilate. And so they did the closest thing. But that's not his name. Right? So even if you're talking about that, that's somebody completely different. Once again, we got to be in a position to talk about things that are correct. Right? If you look in any book and it says Jesus and it's talking about Yahshua, that's a new version. That's not an original, because that name didn't exist yet anywhere. The word in another language might have existed, but it being the name put on him, we know that didn't look. But there's a lot of different things we can go to. What I'm saying is, in all these things, what are you doing to find out you? Where is it? What are you that you're doing to find out you? What are you going to do to recut yourself? What are you going to do not only to get reparations? What are you doing for preparations? Where are you going to prepare? Okay, if that's what you want to believe, that's fine. Once again, but I'm just talking culture, right? So in our culture, it actually says what he was wearing and stuff, but that's cool. Regardless of what it is that you believe, at the end of the day, what are you doing to repair and repair, P-A-R-E, and prepare, P-A-R-E? Prepare means before it happens, I got to have an environment. That's why you see a precept, you got to be careful. Precept means what's your environment. See, we don't know these words. People keep talking about English, but sept, C-E-P-T. Sept means what? It's an idea. So if I'm talking about a precept and a concept, the precept comes first, the sept comes second, the concept comes last. So precept means what? There has to be an environment for what? Sept, the idea, and then the sept has to what? I have to become one with it. We call it a concept. See, so our concepts that we're one with are not even based off of actual septs, ideas, because they don't come out of the right environment, the precept. Even once again, religion, and it means what? Legion, what a group of people do repetitively. So if you're a Buddhist, if you're a Hindu, if you're a yogi, right, you have certain things that you do across the board, you would call that religion. It doesn't, right? But I'm not worried about somebody's religion if it doesn't help. If it doesn't help you as an individual, if it doesn't help us as a society, then your religion don't matter. That's why I follow the Most High. Right? I can care less about your religion. Everybody has religion. People are religiously voting in the polls. That's religious. Because we don't use the word correctly doesn't mean that's not what it means. People religiously vote. Okay. Right? Right. But it's not about that. It's about religiously constructing yourself. Now, once again, remember I asked a question a long time ago, and we got to get ready to take our leave. So after this, I'm done. I asked a question a long time ago. Who is in charge? Right? Who wrote the blueprint? Whose blueprint are you following religiously? That's what I want to know. Okay, Adon, that's cool. Thank you. If that's your perspective, that's fine. I've done stuff with yogis. I've learned from people. I've gone over there. I've talked to people. I've learned from even people that now people look down upon, like Ravi and others. But it's whatever. Like everybody has their own version of things that they want to do, and that's cool, right? So that's cool. But what I'm saying is, who wrote the blueprint? See, if you're going to talk to me about, Yashva was wearing a yogi outfit, Yashva was pretty much buck naked. So, but they say, oh yeah, see, that's what they were wearing down there. No. Like he was stripped of his clothes. That wasn't a choice, right? But it doesn't matter. See, you'll get the sept, and you say, well, I'm gonna become my concept. I'm gonna become one with the sept, one with the idea. But the precept ain't right. The environment ain't right, and that's what's the problem with us. Like that's why men aren't flourishing, because men aren't in the presence of the Most High. Sisters, when He finds you, He should find you in His work, in His presence, or in the presence of the Most High. Right? You'll come into your husband's presence while he's in the presence of the Most High. Right? Like that's how that works. Right? See, if you take a man outside of the presence of the Most High, he malfunctions. right? If you take a fish out of water, like we said, you take a fish out of water, you put it in the eagle's nest, it will malfunction and die. If you take an eagle and you put it 200 yards beneath the sea level, it will malfunction, it will die. You said the Catholic Church put all the canons in the Bible that we read today? Of course not. Matter of fact, the Roman Catholic Church changed a bunch of things. But once again, the Roman Catholic Church, we know it for what it is. It's Christian. Christianos, by definition, means that you involve as many different gods, deities, natures, etc., that you can to be able to make something work. That's why they have an obelisk in the middle of the Vatican. You're talking to somebody that's different. This Tav right here is something that existed before Christianos, so Christianity did. So my sept is based off of my precept. Before there was a such thing as Christianity, and therefore a Roman Christianity and a Roman Catholic version of Christianity, and therefore a Roman Catholic Church. The word church actually, the root word for it is coming from cirque. Cirque church. They're talking about a circus. So before we talk about a Roman Catholic circus, before all that existed, there was. Right. I'm not coming from what other people doing. So you're making a mistake of saying, see, this is something that had somebody in church had to show me. I didn't even become a Christian, but I believed in this, but I didn't become a Christian, and I'm not a Christian now, but I became a Christian on my walk, thinking that was supposedly what I was supposed to do. Right. And just like you said, asking questions, doing things like that. So I haven't stopped at where I am and saying I should stop asking questions. I actually left where I was because they wouldn't let me ask questions. And then I left where it was because I started telling the truth and they started questioning the truth. Maybe we should learn of each other before we begin to say that this is exactly what the other person believes. And maybe a little bit on me. I convict myself when I say that, right? I can always be better. But once again, who wrote the blueprint? Who wrote the precept? Who wrote the environment? Whatever you've given me the sept, the idea, give me the precept. Who wrote it? The author gives the title. The title does not describe the author. Stop telling me the title of something and then telling me who the authority is. You got to find out the authority to figure out what the title is. That's why people didn't like what we presented. What? See? People didn't like what we presented. What? We just presented what? People didn't like it, but I said, what? If you don't believe me, first of all, learn about the author. They tell you about the author. You know about the author. Then you can learn about the title. The author gave the title. So if you tell me that Darwinism is separate from racism, you can't tell me that if Darwin himself was a racist. And you use the word racist by your definition, because racist is supposed to be, the IST is supposed to mean he's proficient. So IST should mean he's proficient at a competition, because race should be a competition. But the social construct is something he bought into, learned about, and presented. And that's why people don't like it. So once again, we're not trying to be like a lot of people. A lot of people, they're stuck and they're okay with being perfectly imperfect. Leave me alone in my imperfection. But we're constantly trying to be under construction. Now, very last word, and then we're out. When we say be under construction, that doesn't mean make fun of or talk bad about the person who is under construction as well, or the person that wants to be perfectly imperfect. We still love the perfectly imperfect, but we can still love and honor our becoming better every day. And that's the way it is. So thank y'all for being on. I appreciate it. At the end of the day, once again, remember, this is just a cultural perspective. If you don't like this cultural perspective and you prefer yours, may y'all bless you. Right? May he cover you even in that walk. May he cover you even in your wanting to be perfectly imperfect, or you're maybe not realizing that some of the stuff I'm saying might actually be based off of verification and being on point. But we're going to get ready for our, and even if there's some things that I might have made mistakes in, who knows? Prayerfully, you can forgive me, because that's what you say that we're supposed to do. So thank you guys so much. Shabbat shalom to everybody. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Amma, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we're grateful for everything that she has to offer. Check her out at Bloom and Flourish. Once again, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. And you can find her on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest. Thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and take my leave. Thank you guys so much. I apologize about last night. Last night we just weren't able to get on. It is what it is. But thankful that you guys came on with us. We'll be back on the same channel on TikTok tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern, New York time. And don't forget, coming up, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up. Next Tuesday, we're literally about to go into the podcast at 10. Ministers in Training, we're going to see you at 5. And this is all Eastern New York time. Tomorrow we'll be back on at 8 a.m. September 17th, we're looking every Thursday. We have Thursday Rising Prayer. You can go to our website and stuff, of course, to look up things. Go to our YouTube channel. We have stuff in the description box on the YouTube channel. September 17th, we're going to be doing 4 hours of power on Zoom only. No SOC meeting today. No SOC meeting for the rest of this week because we're going to be meeting up every weekend. So September 17th, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time, 4 hours of power. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Via donation only. So if you, or not only, but via donation, I'm not looking for anything. But if you want to bless us with something, if you hear something that blesses you, if you want to send something, if you want to, whatever, thank you so much for doing so. September 25th on Zoom, no donations required at all. That's a Hebrew holy day. We're going to be doing Feast of Trumpets, and we look forward to that. Hebrew Holy Day Committee, don't forget, on Tuesday, once again, we need to meet at 6:30 p.m. or 7 p.m. 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. because we got our Patreon video. So thank you, Patreon Kingdom. Thank you all so much. If you want to look up the Patreon stuff as well, feel free to get the information on that as well. If you just got questions in general, let us know. You can DM us, get in contact with us, email, call, contact, text, etc. And also people in Florida, don't forget, we're coming by 23rd through the 25th. So everybody in Florida, don't forget we're coming by 23rd through the 25th, and we look forward to talking to you guys and seeing you guys down there in South Florida. So if you want more information on where exactly, let us know. As we get closer, we'll be able to give it to you. But when we're further out, we try to keep things a little secretive to help us a little bit. All right. But thank y'all. We appreciate you. If you need the information, let us know. All right. I haven't gotten but a couple people who've been like, yeah, let me know more information. So if you need the information, let us know. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you. Appreciate you. Honor you. Hopefully we'll see you on the podcast for Shabbat Shalom service. Pray for Minister Sonia. Pray for Sister Sharnicia. And as always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken until we have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, Yashadel, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom. Take care.